Welcome to our deep dive on when chatter becomes conspiracy and the perilous line between free speech and felony charges. Today, we will explore how the law distinguishes protected expression from criminal conduct, why the true threat doctrine matters, and how conspiracy law can transform talk into liability. We will also look at a recent high-profile incident that sparked debate about overheard remarks and alleged intent. As we move forward, keep in mind that this is an educational overview to help you think critically about speech, evidence, and intent. Here is the roadmap for today's video. First, we outline the high-profile case and the broader climate. Next, we break down the legal standards for free speech versus true threats, then cover conspiracy law basics. After that, we examine how reliability and context shape the analysis, and finish with practical tips, quick quizzes, and key takeaways. Let's transition to the case backdrop to set the stage. A recent case brought national attention to the boundary between protected speech and criminal liability. According to reports, individuals were charged with serious felonies after an off-duty law enforcement officer allegedly overheard comments referencing federal operations. The allegations further included references to specialized firearms, which prosecutors framed as indications of capability and intent. Moving from this backdrop, we now need to clarify the legal doctrines that separate crude political commentary from prosecutable threats. Before we proceed, please note this video is educational and does not constitute legal advice. We do not condone violence or unlawful activity. Laws vary by jurisdiction, and outcomes depend on specific facts. If you face a real legal question, consult a qualified attorney. With that groundwork laid, let's move into the doctrines that guide courts in these situations. This section clarifies the core doctrines. Free speech is broadly protected, but not when speech crosses into a true threat. A true threat is an intentional communication that conveys a serious intent to commit unlawful violence against an identifiable person or group. Courts analyze context, including the specificity of the threat, credibility, and whether a reasonable person would perceive the statement as serious. Separately, conspiracy law does not require the crime to be completed. It requires an agreement between two or more people to commit a crime, the specific intent to do so, and an overt act beyond mere talk. An overt act can be minimal, as long as it is a real step toward the plan. In close cases, context becomes pivotal. Evidence, such as timing, audience, capability, and mention or possession of tools associated with violence, can push ambiguous speech toward liability. With these definitions in mind, we will illustrate how the true threat analysis unfolds, step by step. This flowchart demonstrates how a statement can be assessed. We begin with the speech as observed. First, decision points ask whether the content is specific and whether a target is identified. Next, the analysis considers credible intent, including whether the statement appears serious or is conditional or hyperbolic. The context node covers timing, audience, and any relevant prior behavior. Capability indicators, such as evidence of tools or logistics, may influence whether authorities perceive the statement as feasible. Finally, the reasonable perception test asks whether a reasonable person would view the statement as a serious intent to commit unlawful violence. In parallel, reliability checks for law enforcement reporting and witnesses feed into the analysis. If the elements align towards seriousness and capability, the path ends at a true threat. Otherwise, it remains protected speech. On the left, true threats involve identifiable targets, serious and credible tone, contextual indicators of capability, and would cause a reasonable person to feel threatened. Often there are steps pointing to imminence. On the right, protected speech includes vague political venting, hyperbole, satire, and statements lacking concrete timing, logistics, or capability. The reasonable person standard and the presence or absence of concrete steps frequently determine the outcome. This table highlights reliability concerns for different evidence sources. Overheard remarks raise questions about the precise wording, tone, and surrounding context, which can lead to misinterpretation. Witness memory can be affected by delays, bias, or lack of contemporaneous notes. Physical items may have lawful uses, and without context, possession can be misread as intent. Digital messages require authentication and full conversational context. Missing portions and informal cues like irony or sarcasm can cause misinterpretation. Considering these risks helps explain the defense focus on process and reliability, rather than endorsing the statements themselves. Here are practical tips to reduce risk. First, evaluate context and how a reasonable person might interpret your words. Second, avoid specificity about targets, timing, or logistics. Third, do not combine heated rhetoric with references to capability or tools. Fourth, if discussing policy, state clearly that you advocate nonviolent lawful action. Fifth, online communication strips tone and can make figurative language seem literal. Choose words carefully and include clarifying context. Finally, if you anticipate sensitive discussions, consult a qualified attorney to understand local laws and risks. With these precautions in mind, let's explore how conspiracy law views the journey from talk to potential charges. Conspiracy requires three key elements: an agreement between two or more people, the intent to commit a crime, and an overt act beyond mere talk. The overt act does not have to be dramatic. Even a modest step can be enough if it is a real move toward the plan. Importantly, the crime need not be completed for conspiracy liability to attach. Prosecutors will evaluate whether context, such as steps toward logistics or coordination, shows more than idle talk. This is why the presence of planning behavior can transform conversation into criminal exposure. Now that we have the structure of conspiracy in mind, let's test your understanding with a short quiz. Question: which scenario is most likely to be considered a true threat? Option A: a vague, heated rant with no target, timing, or steps. Option B: a sarcastic meme with absurd exaggeration. Option C: a statement naming a specific agency, suggesting a date, and referencing readiness to act. Option D: a private complaint using figurative language like fight to mean advocate. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is C. Specificity regarding a target, a suggested time frame, and references implying capability can shift speech from protected expression to a true threat in the eyes of a reasonable person. Those factors move the statement towards seriousness rather than hyperbole. Question: under conspiracy law, which combination most clearly creates exposure? Option A: two people venting online with no next steps. Option B: a group agrees to commit a crime but takes no action. Option C: two people agree to commit a crime, and one takes a concrete preparatory step. Option D: a single person daydreams without involving anyone else. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is C. Conspiracy liability typically requires an agreement, the intent to commit a crime, and an overt act. When one conspirator takes a preparatory step, even a modest one, that can satisfy the overt act requirement. This diagram shows how context elevates scrutiny. If a statement identifies a specific target, is delivered with serious tone implying intent, and includes capability indicators, it will receive high scrutiny. A reasonable person analysis helps separate hyperbole from threats. In modern conditions, offhand remarks can be recorded, preserved, and interpreted differently later, which increases legal risk. These are the key points. First, speech remains protected until it becomes a specific and credible threat. Second, conspiracy liability can apply even without a completed crime, as long as there is an agreement and an overt act. Third, outcomes often hinge on context and the reliability of evidence. Fourth, avoid specificity, discussions of capability, and logistics when emotions run high. Finally, keep advocacy peaceful and seek legal advice when uncertain. To conclude, remember that the true threat doctrine focuses on serious, intentional communications of unlawful violence. Conspiracy requires agreement, intent, and an overt act, meaning talk alone is rarely enough but can become risky when paired with concrete steps. Reliability checks on overheard remarks and digital communications are crucial to fair outcomes. In practice, private remarks can be preserved and reinterpreted as preparatory acts, so careful communication is important. Next, we will thank you for watching and invite your participation. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. I would love to hear your perspectives and questions in the comments to continue the conversation.